They're in the same room again. You know, we reject our crazies. It's time for you guys to reject them.
Greg Gutfeld is the breath of fresh air that America didn't know it needed. Known for his sharp wit, biting sarcasm, and unapologetic approach, Gutfeld is always ready to tear down the establishment. And during one unforgettable live TV showdown, he absolutely obliterated Jessica Tarlov and the hosts of The View. The entire encounter was nothing short of a humiliation, a real-time takedown of the liberal agenda that left everyone speechless. Grab some popcorn, because this ride is about to get wild.
Okay.
Give me a crazy person, I'll reject him.
Donald Trump.
See, that's your problem. He's not crazy. That's your problem.
That is exactly the problem.
But before we talk about the drama, let's set the stage. The View, a show known for its left-leaning, politically charged opinions, thought they could take on Gutfeld and win. Little did they know, Gutfeld was about to turn the tables and leave Jessica Tarlov and the other hosts fumbling for words. What happened next? Well, let's just say it was the perfect example of what happens when the left tries to take on someone who isn't afraid to call out their hypocrisy.
You don't have to say it's fine. I'm just telling you the reality.
Did you vote to revoke birthright citizenship for the children of people who are here legally?
Do you understand what that means?
Yeah, I do.
Tell me about it.
It all started when Jessica Tarlov, a prominent political analyst and frequent The View guest, was asked a simple question. What's your favorite executive order? Now, you'd think this would be a straightforward question, but instead, Jessica did what she does best: deflect. Instead of answering the question, she cleverly dodged it and shifted the focus back onto herself. Is that your favorite as a Democrat or as an American? She asked, making it clear she wasn't about to take responsibility for any decisions made by the Biden administration.
Donald Trump doesn't respect the way the government works. He wants to override Congress. Congress appropriates the money. Donald Trump thinks you do what you want.
This moment was a perfect snapshot of the left's tendency to avoid accountability and redirect uncomfortable questions. Gutfeld, however, wasn't about to let her off the hook. He wasted no time pointing out her inability to make a direct point, saying, "In my opinion, she's better suited for MSNBC than sitting here." And it didn't take long for that jab to land. This wasn't just a disagreement. It was a moment that would go down in TV history as a total mic drop.
You think
Every metric was up when he was president. And
That's
you know
not
what?
true.
Oh, okay.
There's nothing that he believes in that comes close to tampons for boys.
As Jessica continued to deflect, the conversation veered toward Trump's executive orders, where Jessica, clearly uncomfortable with the topic, tried to redirect the discussion. She claimed that some of the diversity, equity, and inclusion programs went too far and suggested they should be reevaluated. What's ironic here is that she's talking about policies that have been embraced by her side, but when it's time to defend them, she does everything possible to avoid standing by them.
Tell me what birthright citizenship meant.
Well, I think when Donald Trump was talking about it and disparaging people over here, he was talking about undocumented people who come and drop their anchor babies.
It was becoming obvious. Jessica wasn't about to back down from her defense of Biden's administration, even though Trump had made it clear that he would never compromise on these issues. But instead of directly answering questions or discussing what had happened, she turned the focus back to her personal views. It was the classic move of someone who wasn't prepared to own up to the consequences of their party's decisions. And then came Gutfeld. Greg Gutfeld, never one to shy away from confrontation, didn't let Jessica's deflection go unnoticed. He immediately responded with his usual sarcasm, cutting through the nonsense like a hot knife through butter. "You don't have to like everything on the menu to appreciate the restaurant," Gutfeld quipped, using his trademark humor to make a serious point. "There are things that Trump does that I disagree with, but the entire package is as close as you're going to get to what Americans want." That, right there, was the moment everyone had been waiting for. Gutfeld perfectly captured the frustration that many Americans feel. They may not agree with everything Trump did, but his results spoke for themselves.
Yeah, you know, I love that I guess he told Kamala, you know, look, I'm not going after your job like the last vice president.
But Gutfeld didn't stop there. he hammered down on Jessica's refusal to accept reality, exposing her inability to recognize that Americans had voted for policies that were directly against the administration's current agenda. You guys sat here and argued that the Afghanistan withdrawal was one of the worst atrocities in foreign policy, and now you're fine with it? That's the difference, he said, addressing Jessica's stance on the matter.
I haven't seen this many people running away since Joy Behar washed up on the beach and they had to blow her up with dynamite.
It was the kind of statement that left the View hosts speechless, because Gutfeld had called them out for their blatant hypocrisy. He wasn't just pushing back, he was exposing the fallacy in their arguments, one by one. Next, Gutfeld zeroed in on one of the key issues that has divided America: immigration. Jessica, trying to argue in favor of the left's stance, claimed that Trump's comments about undocumented immigrants were a gross oversimplification. But once again, Gutfeld wasn't having any of it. He pointed out the flaws in her logic, saying, "If you're talking about undocumented people who come here and drop anchor babies, that's not what Trump was talking about. He was talking about the broader system being gamed by the left."
Shots fired.
It's a legal question. I don't know why it's so upsetting. I don't make the rules in this country. All right.
With this, Gutfeld struck at the heart of the issue. He wasn't simply arguing over policy. He was bringing attention to a much larger problem: the manipulation of the system by those on the left. Americans voted for Trump because they saw these systems being gamed, from asylum issues to birthright citizenship, Gutfeld explained, summing up what many people on the right felt about the way immigration laws were being abused.
He wasn't talking about people who are here on student visas, people who are here on H-1B visas.
You're always going to choose this weird exception.
No,
the fact is the
it's
system
not
is being
weird.
gamed.
It was a master stroke. Gutfeld's ability to cut through the noise and get straight to the heart of the issue was on full display, and the audience could see that Jessica was losing the debate, 1 point at a time. And then it came, the moment that would leave the View hosts in absolute disbelief. "You don't have to defend this crap," Gutfeld said, pointing out that the Democrats had been pushed into defending ridiculous policies like tampons in boys' bathrooms and surgical transitions for children. "You shouldn't have to defend this stuff," he continued, calling out the left's irrationality.
These aren't liberal positions. They're just awful ones. Then you could reject them. You don't have to sit here and defend tampons for boys. You could just say, you know what, there's nothing liberal about that, right?
Jessica's response? She had none. Gutfeld had completely obliterated her argument, and there was no coming back from it. It was a moment of pure humiliation for Jessica and anyone who stood by her. As Gutfeld continued to school them, he reminded viewers that the conservative movement didn't support these extreme ideas. Instead, they valued practicality and common sense, things that were often abandoned by the left in favor of emotional decisions and radical policies. "The Democrats have allowed radicals to define what it means to be liberal," Gutfeld said, driving home the point that liberalism had been hijacked by people who had no grasp on reality.
The fact
Hold
that
on,
his
sir.
bond...
Hold on, sir.
What's
I have to stop you with the camera because I can see you. So do me a favor, don't pull it out again.
Of course, the backlash from the left came quickly. The View wasn't going to let this humiliation go unanswered. They labeled Gutfeld's comments as toxic and misogynistic, clearly unable to handle the truth bomb he'd dropped on their woke narrative. They couldn't fathom the fact that Gutfeld's sharp commentary had exposed their hypocrisy and stripped away the comforting layer of political correctness they had so carefully wrapped themselves in. Rather than admitting the flaws in their arguments, they chose to attack the messenger, but this only added fuel to the fire.
Americans voted for Donald Trump because they saw these systems, these institutions being gamed. The asylum issue, the birthright citizen issue.
Gutfeld, always one to confront his critics head-on, didn't shy away from their attacks. Instead, he addressed them directly in his next show, doubling down on his points and exposing the left's inability to have a rational discussion about the issues that matter. he masterfully dissected their arguments, using his signature quick wit and no-holds-barred approach. By taking on the liberal media's double standards and showing how they repeatedly failed to address the real concerns of everyday Americans, he left them with nowhere to hide. The more they attacked, the more Gutfeld's presence on the political scene grew stronger, proving that he was a force to be reckoned with.
This is not something we're doing because it's, sexually gratifying. This is what we're doing to protect our families. And you don't have to do it, but stay away from everybody.
This showdown between Greg Gutfeld and Jessica Tarlov is a perfect example of how the conservative voice is starting to gain more ground in the media. Gutfeld wasn't just playing defense, he was on the offensive, calling out the left for their hypocrisy and lack of logic. In doing so, he illustrated a much-needed shift in the media landscape, where individuals who challenge the status quo are beginning to find a platform.
Or for pushing trans surgeries on children because they're suffering from a psychological delusion. There's nothing like that in the conservative movement. But Democrats have embraced these things because they're so scared of being called lack of compassionate.
What stood out most was the way Gutfeld approached the confrontation, with humor, not hatred. By using satire, sarcasm, and precision, he exposed the flaws in the liberal narrative without descending into personal attacks. He knew the real power was in making people think, not simply shouting louder than his opponents. He showcased the ridiculousness of the View's stance, all while keeping the conversation engaging and sharp.
You don't spread democracy, you spread business. Because you create business relationships with people, and then they don't want to kill you. It's as simple as that.
It's clear that Greg Gutfeld is not just a voice in the crowd. He's a leader in the fight against the woke agenda. His success in this live TV showdown proves that the conservative movement isn't going away anytime soon. Rather, it's gathering momentum, challenging the status quo, and giving the American people a new way of looking at the issues that matter most. Gutfeld's strategy wasn't just to win an argument. It was to shift the conversation in a way that would resonate long after the cameras stopped rolling.
Americans got pushed too far. Point is, you don't have to like everything in the restaurant to like the restaurant. There are things, I go to a restaurant, I don't eat any seafood, but I like that restaurant because it's got steak.
So, what do you think? Did Greg Gutfeld completely destroy Jessica Tarlov and The View? Or was it just another heated political debate that doesn't really move the needle? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's get the conversation going. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Celeb Titbits for more insider takes on the biggest political moments happening today. Trust us, you don't want to miss what's coming next.